Thank you. And what I'm going to do is, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a selfie of everybody while I've got your attention. I have a 6-year-old who doesn't pay me any attention. I want to prove to him that there's people in this world who will pay attention to me, if that's all right. So if everybody could just look at the camera. Just wave to the 6-year-old. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, I have written down here, good morning. It's already past that. So good afternoon, everybody. It is actually really good to be here. I'm going to talk about the hybrid experience today. I'm going to talk about what's driving the transition to hybrid working. I'm going to talk about the challenges to transition into this new mode of working as well, and then what the solutions might look like. Now, there is going to be a slight bias towards what RingCentral provide, but I am trying to white label what those solutions might look like. We just provide them best for future reference when we get there. I have one forward ask of you that I would like you to keep in mind going forward and when you're listening to me today. And if you hear something that rings true to you or something that you think actually we really could do with help overcoming that hurdle, it'd be to come and see us at the Softworks stand, and you will have seen us because we're right as soon as you get into the event. So the way I look at it is the pandemic was quite clearly the great disruptor. At the time, my 5-year-old at the time, he was 5, was climbing on me during calls with senior executives, and in one instance, on a video call with the gentleman who had a moustache, he said, "I must ask you a question." I regretted telling him that joke, but I've never been more proud of my child in that moment either. And I think hybrid work is the great pivot. But I think we need to think about the question as to why we've had to pivot and why we did have to pivot throughout the pandemic. And there was obvious reasons like the need to keep things moving, to keep shelves stacked, to keep people fed, things like that. But there was also employee expectations shifted because of all of the things that we had to do to keep our businesses running. And employees have seen benefits of not standing by the coffee machine or sitting in traffic or sitting on a train in the mornings. And they still want to share that, they still want that shared sense of meaning that being in the workplace gives them. People are social creatures, so whether we're with people or apart, we still want to be able to interact and engage with our peers and colleagues. Hybrid work has exposed us to new problems to solve. We're just at the beginning of this phase of change, I think, and still adapting and changing. Collectively, we're probably reviewing, or we should be reviewing, some of our leadership and management processes. Some will be more advanced in doing this and leveraging their pre-pandemic experiences. Some will be playing catch-up. Some will be looking at what they've done and starting to consolidate all those different shadow technologies that you were possibly using. So you had lots of different platforms and trying to bring those costs in. But work practices are evolving and our physical workspaces are changing as well. So we're kind of asking the question as well, what do we really need from an office environment? I expect it's probably been asked by everybody's organisation in this room as well. So I mentioned earlier that employee expectations have shifted, and I was fairly confident in saying that because I knew this slide was coming. 52% of people would prefer to wash the dishes than to commute to work. 74% feel like the human connection's changed, and I think we all probably felt that in our personal lives as well. During lockdown, our ways of communicating with family and friends became video chats or online quizzes with our friends, beers and things like that via video. 9 out of 10 people expect to spend at least 3 days in the office. Now, I think that's a very marked change from previously, because for many workers before, there wasn't a question of how many days they would spend in the office. You were spending 9 to 5 days a week in the office. The University of Chicago conducted a survey that showed employees wanted to work from home for 2 days a week, while employers wanted their employees to work for just 1 day a week. Quite clearly, there's a source of friction there, and there's a way that we can get around that by using technology. From the employer side, when it comes to technology, they're going to want high reliability, and employees that are engaged and the ability to ensure that the culture permeates throughout the organisation. For employees, well, they want to see their colleagues, they want to feel part of something bigger, and they want to have that flexibility of working wherever they are. So I'm going to talk about 4 different challenges that kind of can cause friction and make this change different. So collaboration, culture, productivity, and cost. And believe me, I work in marketing. I tried to find a C that would cover productivity as well, and I couldn't find one. But I think these challenges are part of the same family of barriers, if you like, but they differ and pose different questions of organisations. They also lead to different ways of thinking about the same problem. There's no neat box that they all fit in, no beautiful word that sums them up nicely. But right across your organisation, customers, employees, managers, and even suppliers can be frustrated when any one of these isn't good enough and the standards aren't met. So if we start thinking about collaboration, for example, it's a key part of how businesses work. The previous people had Steve Jobs on a slide. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to quote him and reference what he did. So Apple, for example, they designed their HQ as a giant glass circle so that employees could bump into each other and cross-pollinate ideas, and that is Steve Jobs' word, it's definitely not me. But we don't need to look at the extreme of building what looks like a giant spaceship to understand the importance of being able to effectively collaborate with our colleagues. Being able to work with colleagues on projects, beyond bringing together the best talent in your organisation, makes people feel connected to their place of work. 4 modes of work that hybrid working can encapsulate. And bear with me on this, I will try to explain them. There's working together, so what that means is working in the same place as someone on the same topic. There's working together apart, working in the same office space, but working on separate projects. There's working apart together, which is working away from each other, so remotely, but also collaborating on those same projects, and then working apart, so working away from your colleagues and working on your own projects as well. So in a time when the phrase the Great Resignation was coined, it's important that employees feel valued and engaged, and you can probably sense that there's going to be challenges when you're apart, when you're together apart, and all those different ways of working. So collaboration in most cases will mean work, but it's important that you're able to collaborate, and if I can stretch the meaning a little bit, it's important to collaborate across the organisation with people, and it could be as basic as a 5-minute chat and that building of the relationships that you have when you're in the workplace. So if we move on to the culture really does set the tone for how your organisation is perceived. And I'm aware that that's a really bold statement for someone in marketing to make, making the external perception an HR problem. But that's not what I'm doing here. Culture does affect how you're perceived both internally and externally, though. It does. Organisational culture is crucial, for example, to retain and attract talent. In a global labour market, and we really are truly in a global labour market, the intangible things matter more to employees and candidates. Part of the culture that's important for many employees at RingCentral, where I work, is the ability to have that flexibility to work away from the office or from another location when the need to do so arises. Going back to the stat I spoke about earlier, when I was setting the scene, 90% of employees expect to be in the office just 3 days a week. Being in an office 5 days a week was typically what you were expected, but that's no longer the case. People aren't expecting that. So how do we make sure that culture permeates throughout the organisation? Well, proximity can help, right? It helps to be around people and feel that culture. When you want to immerse yourself in a culture of a different country, you go and visit that country. The same's true, effectively, in businesses. However, that proximity can be real or it can be perceived. There's other factors that contribute to the culture of businesses as well. A sense of shared purpose, accountability, fairness and transparency, they're all key factors, especially when it comes to having those people who are distributed throughout the country or even the globe when it comes to working. But if you're intentional about your culture and creating and setting a tone, supporting it with the right technology, you can continue to ensure the perception that you want in the world is the right one, and you can back it up when people come into the business or when they dig a little bit deeper. So thinking about productivity now, and this is a key one for lots of managers, at least anyway, for sure. So the traditional way of working, I think, being in an office, has conditioned us a little bit. A result of needing to be in the office, we associate with being in the office the most efficient and effective way to work. What the pandemic did was 2 things with that theory. The first is it really tested it. Could people be as productive at home or out of the office as they were in the office? And I guess the flip side from the employee's perspective is, does my employer trust me when I'm not in the office in the way that they trust me when I'm in the office and they can keep an eye on me? This may be a good point to look at the challenges that can arise when it comes to productivity and hybrid working. Things like social isolation, disconnection between co-workers, and having the right or the wrong tools and working longer hours can contribute to decreased productivity for hybrid workers. The second thing that the pandemic did, with the theory that office was the best way to be productive, was to prove it entirely wrong. 57% of respondents in a PwC survey in November 2021 said that they outperformed their productivity targets in the 12 months previous. In fact, if you were to go on Google and search anything that leads to that sort of conclusion, they'll tell you that everybody was outperforming their productivity targets when we were working from home. So we'll move on to the next slide, which is cost, and this is the final challenge I'm going to talk about today. And costs, obviously, first and foremost, a financial thing, right? But there's also the health cost as well when you think about all the different things that the pandemic did and what it could mean when someone's working from home. What's the cost to their health there? But I'm going to start with the cost as a financial one. So hybrid working could be viewed as a cost reduction strategy. I mentioned earlier that when you're reviewing the property and the office spaces that your businesses hold, you're likely going to consider how full these spaces need to be, how full they will be, and how you can get the best value from that space. You might choose to downsize your office because you can see a pathway to hybrid working that makes sense and makes it easy for employees to be in the office and collaborate without the need for designated desks. But I think it's important that we all recognise we don't live in a vacuum either. Everyone here is aware of the cost of living crisis and the increasing cost of energy. Obviously, we all feel this in our personal lives. In the office setting, here though in the UK, we know that energy costs don't have the same retail price cap as domestic retail energy. And this can play an important part in considering how viable a large office space is going to be, for example. But again, there's a flip side to that. Your staff are working from home, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. Their bills are going up as well. Their costs of energy, they're consuming more energy. So they're likely thinking, well, do I want to work from home, or do I want to go and shower in the office, and do I want to use their heating and their microwaves and all the energy that they're supplying? So there is a balance there. And it'll cause concern for employees in the same way it'll cause concern for employers when it comes to evaluating where they're going to be. And there's a good chance that some employees might be resistant to that change as well. Everyone thinks, oh, home working, it's going to be great. But employees might think, I don't want to be using the laptop and everything in my house all day. People go home and use these devices, and they might want a rest on their electricity bills from that. But it could be, I guess, that the cost of commuting versus the cost of your energy kind of balances it out, and maybe there's a happy medium there. Of course, there isn't a right answer to this. I've spent time here talking about how the hybrid working could be good for businesses and employees. And it can be. What is important is that the cost is looked at by employers in both the context of financial and health, like I mentioned earlier. So considering the health and the well-being of your employees is key, and making sure that you have policies and procedures to keep them in a good place. So things like encouraging open communication, being flexible about how and where they work, factoring life events that should be easy to deal with. I had an instance where my washing machine broke in the middle of the day and I had to go to the laundrette, and I was able to get on my phone with my boss and communicate that way, still be able to collaboratively work with people, but able to get on with my day as well. But it's also important that you set boundaries for employees so that they know that they're not expected to work those more hours that everybody reported doing when the pandemic came. So giving them help with managing time, it will help their morale, but also it will keep what I was talking about earlier, productivity, it will keep that high. So how do we do that? Well, the idea is to make the hybrid experience simple. I guess that really kind of raises the question on how we do that. And it comes down to stripping down the technology and experience to 3 areas that need to be simplified. So they are setting up, running and managing your business. So setting up your business with radical mobility, and I will explain that fancy term. Running your meetings effectively with smarter meetings, and managing your business with analytics that are at the speed of your business, that are real time and give you genuine insight into what's going on at that time. So what is radical mobility and why does it matter? I'm going to start with why it matters, and the why is because it's a workers' market. We've all heard about the Great Resignation, I mentioned it earlier, and further to that, the talent market has become truly global, and the tools that are available in today's workforce are important to them. It's not a post-pandemic shift, it's a generational shift, and a change in attitude in the culture of work. And the second part is, what is radical mobility? Radical mobility is enabling people to connect and communicate on any device, anywhere, at any time. That sounds really fancy, In practice, what it means is the ability to switch between devices and carry on working and collaborating and communicating. For some people, this might scream the death of the work-life balance. In fact, it's just the opposite. The ability to move from desktop to tablet or mobile and back again opens up the ability for both work and to deal with real life, like I mentioned earlier. But there's more practical reasons to still want to be able to the ability to switch devices. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one in this room that's experienced the panic of it popping up on your phone that you're entering low power mode as you're beginning a video call. Being able to transfer that across to a device that's plugged in or transfer it across to a device with plenty of charge certainly gives you that little bit more confidence. But more than that, I think radical mobility, it can be argued, is essential. And it's essential because of the reasons that I've outlined, but also because of the shift in worker expectations and increased competitiveness in the labour market. Being able to be an employer that encourages inclusivity within the workplace can only be a good thing. It speaks to the culture of an organisation, bringing opportunities to those who may find it difficult to participate in a traditional working environment. It's one of the key reasons I went to work for RingCentral, because of that ability to empower people to get into the workplace. And it ensures that you've got the largest pool of talent available to you. And I think that's essential. And making sure that working for you is an attractive proposition, I think that's essential as well. I think we could all agree with that. So if we think about being simple to manage and run your business, thinking about the productivity challenge here and what this addresses, it's how many of you are late to meetings or are double booked, sometimes triple booked for meetings that are online. And here's the thing, some of those meetings probably need to be up for information. Some of them, in all fairness, could probably have been an email, but that's a total different subject that we could spend half an hour on. You need to have a good and efficient way to catch up with those meetings that you've missed without needing to begin every conversation with the meeting organiser with an apology and then a question of whether there were any actions for you or not in that meeting. So a really good solution, non-branded solution, but might be RingCentral, I think would be able to do things like this, which is having the capability to generate meeting summaries with keywords, highlights, transcripts, to make it easy for you to catch up on all the different things that you've missed. Or even if you've just missed 2 minutes in a meeting, because Amazon have decided that that's the moment that they're going to turn up with your parcel that you've been waiting on for days. But tools that produce transcripts, that generate reports of meetings that you have, and the engagement of participants can help you figure out what's important. Other features that let you watch the highlights of the meeting, like sports scene or match of the day. Or, if you're like me and you're flicking between 25 windows, multitasking, you can read the highlights. All these tools are important in getting the productivity of your business right, making sure that you're engaging with the right things in all the meetings that you're being asked to attend. And finally, how do we make it simple for you to manage your business? Well, I think the other 2 topics that I spoke about are very important, the impact to employees and where and how you can do business. But I think this point really affects the most important people for your business, and that's your customers. The people that talk to your customers, the face of your business. The managers of these people need to know what's going on in real time. They need to know how their teams are performing. To do that, most managers are going to ask questions. They're going to ask things like, what are the volumes of calls that my teams are getting? How do I track down my own performance indicators? How can I report my performance and the performance of my team to leadership? Getting the answers to these questions can help make critical decisions on how to plan and use your resources. Further to that, the best solutions that are out there are not those that can answer these questions by giving you more work to do. They just present you with the data and then you've got to figure out what it means. Instead, what the best tools are doing, what RingCentral do, is the best tools give you more information and enable you to have it in your hands in real time, analysed so that you can make actionable decisions. So in summary today, I think I have highlighted a few of the challenges that face businesses when they are transitioning to hybrid working, which were collaboration, culture, productivity and cost. I've also suggested 3 areas in which we can help overcome those challenges by making it simple to set up your business, making it simple to run your business, and also making it simple to manage your business. And before I finish, I'd like to share an example of a local business that we at RingCentral with our partner Softworks have helped. So Trust Housing Association completed an extensive market research and procurement exercise, and they selected RingCentral via Softworks to be their hosted voice solution and partner. They've got over 600 users across Scotland and many different user profiles. They had very challenging requirements, and RingCentral was chosen, due to being easy to set up, run, manage. And if you would like to discuss in more detail about the problems that you see in transitioning to hybrid working, or you'd like to discover more about the ideal solution to these challenges, please visit us at the Saltfort stand, which is just as you come in, as I said earlier. So thank you.